Guys, the day has come, the long-awaited review of The Flash. Whew, man, okay, here we go. I'm gonna be 100% flat out honest with you guys, because I know you appreciate my honesty above anything else on this channel. I saw The Flash, okay, and let's just get the elephant out of the room, right? Let's just, get the big stuff out of the way first. And that is the whole thing with Ezra Miller. Look, I want you guys to know that I do not support Ezra Miller at all. I mean, nobody should for the stuff he did. He is someone I do not support and I do not like at all. So let's just get that out of the way now. Now, going into the movie, I tried to put that aside, my perception of him, tried to put it aside to try to go in unbiased about it, go unbiased about it, feeling like that, like I already did. So, as many of you know, The Flash came out on Friday. I was able to see it a little bit early. Now, I've never been, like, a huge fan of DC and DCEU and all that. Like, I've liked it, but I've always been more of a Marvel guy. I think where I really went sour on the whole DC stuff was Justice League in 2017. And I mean, even before that, probably Suicide Squad is probably where I went sour on DC. And then, the whole DCEU thing was Justice League is where it kind of went to crap. And before Snyder released the Snyder Cut, obviously. So, anyway, I'm getting off topic. So, this was a movie that was already being made before everything happened and the changes happened with the ownership or the creative people behind DC films. Obviously, James Gunn is now in charge, and so it's a hard reboot of sorts. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But like I said, the first trailer for this movie came out, and I wasn't really that hyped about it, if I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was more hyped about the fact that, you guys have seen the trailer. It's nothing new. I was more hyped about the fact about Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, okay? Because he is one of the best Batmans. I don't care what anybody says. I'm sure most of you agree with me on that Michael Keaton is one of the best Batmans. So I was more excited for that than I was for the actual movie. And anytime that's something that is in your mind, that is not good for the film. So, like I said, I wasn't really too excited about it. I was only there for Michael Keaton, obviously. So, I went into the film. This is going to be probably I guess spoiler for review, but at some point spoiler, because honestly, I'm going to tell you guys right off the gate. If you want to go see it, but it's not gonna be the best movie you've ever, like the best experience of the year. I'll tell you that right now. It's an okay movie. So let's just dive right into it. Let's stop dancing around the topic. Let's just dive into it. Where do I even start this? Okay, so basically this movie is a telling of the comic book story Flashpoint Paradox. Now, I haven't read the comic books, so I don't know all the lore and the history behind that story. But basically, it's telling of the multiverse, the DC multiverse, with different alternate versions of superheroes, pretty much. So kind of like the movies, the multiverse movies that Marvel's done. I feel like a lot of these studios are tackling multiverse movies, obviously. So what's kind of funny is Spider-Man came out before this, and they did the whole explaining the multiverse and all that stuff better, in my opinion, than a billion-dollar film with like a big budget superhero studio did. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, movie's about Flashpoint Paradox and alternate universes and alternate superheroes, obviously. So basically, this movie is about Barry Allen, aka Ezra Miller, playing Barry Allen, which, like I said, you know how I feel about him already. We talked about it at the beginning. It's about Barry Allen going back in time to try to save his mom. Because, I don't know if you guys know the story. I mean, I assume it's in the comics of the story how Barry's mom dies is an intruder comes in and kills her. So, and then, her dad gets blamed, or the dad gets blamed, and the dad goes to jail. So, anyway, Barry in this film is trying to stop that event from happening by obviously going back in time. So, it's kind of like Back to the Future in some elements of it, but not like all the way through. So, basic plot, Flashpoint paradox, trying to go back in time to stop Barry's mom from dying, alternate characters, alternate superhero versions. So the movie starts out, with Barry running late for work, which I guess is the running gag with the Flash, is he's super quick, but he's always late for work, I guess. So, now, it starts, okay? And, like, the point of view that they use for Flash, I thought at the start was really cool. So he takes off running, and it kind of zooms out, and it shows you a really cool camera angle of, like, him in, like, in his running stance, and you can see, like, how everything is moving while he's moving. So I think that's pretty cool. So, the first, so that happens. Then he gets a call from Batman, Bruce Wayne, which also Ben Affleck is in this film as well. He's there at the beginning. Gets a call. He goes helps Batman with a robbery in progress, bank robbery. And then we get to kind of where this whole thing kicks off. That happens, and then after that, you kind of flash back and see what happened with his mom. You get a flashback of him, his mom, and his dad. And his mom always used to make this dinner on Sunday nights, and she needed the different ingredients. And so the dad went to the store to get a can of tomatoes. And then when the dad wasn't there, the intruder came in and killed Barry's mom. So Barry is trying to undo that ever happening. But that's like way down the road. So we get this flashback. We see what happens with Barry's mom and dad and all that. And you go forward. And then you get to the point where he meets, or obviously you met Ben Affleck already, and he's working at this science place, and he's trying to figure out how to go back in time and kind of figure out how to do all this. So basically you get further in the movie, and he ends up being able to go back in time, and he ends up meeting a different version of himself. Oh wait, no, sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. So so then there's also the scene at the beginning where, like, I guess his building is falling down and collapsing and stuff, and I think it's a hospital. So he's got to go to a hospital and save these people and also these babies. So the CGI is not good in this, guys. If you're going into this thinking it's going to be top-notch CGI, special effects, visual effects, it's not. This is what it is, okay? So, Barry is trying to figure out how to save these kids, right? These babies, obviously. Because he can't save them the normal way, because they would just disintegrate because he's so fast. So, what he decides to do is save all these babies in all these different, unique ways. And but the one that really stood out to me was he put a baby in a microwave, and I guess because it's flame proof, right? So, he saves all these babies, and I tell you, bro, the CGI on these babies, man, I couldn't help laughing. It did not look good at all. So you get past that, basically. Then, Barry, goes back to work, and then, so we get to the point where he goes back in time, and he meets another version of himself. Now, this version is a just flat out douchebag. Just absolutely the worst version of Barry Allen, obviously, because that's when he didn't know what to do with his powers. That's when he was young and immature, obviously. Then he meets this younger version of himself. He explains that he's trying to save, or he doesn't really explain it yet, but he just explains to his other self that he's here for some reason, something about the past, right? And so Ben Affleck's Batman told him not to interact with anything in the past because it could change the future. And Barry obviously didn't listen. So, they go on this adventure, and then they find out, I think they go to like a bar or a pub or whatever, and they find out that Zod's back. And many of you know Zod was from Man of Steel, obviously. Now, Superman is not really I don't know. He's not mentioned like by name, but they do kind of explain why Superman is not in this film. So you get past that, Zod's back. He's going to destroy everyone. It's not going to be good. So they need to go out and get some help, obviously. So they go to the Wayne Manor, right? And this is like the beaten down old Wayne Manor, cobwebs everywhere. And they go in this basement and they see pasta on the table. And they see Bruce. Bruce Wayne lives there. So they're calling out for Bruce. Barry's calling out for Bruce, obviously. And, you see this old guy. And I didn't, at first I was like, okay, is this Bruce? Is this Michael Keaton? Is this Alfred? I didn't know what was going on. So, you get this, short little, I don't know, a minute, 2-minute fight scene. And then Michael Keaton reveals himself. And he's talking about how the multiverse is like pasta or whatever. And he's talking about how you have these different strands. And if these strands cross, it can cause different things to happen in the future. If you go back in the past and you mess with things, then that will go affect things in the future. And he's just talking about how spaghetti is like the multiverse with different wavelengths that cross patterns or whatever. Well, I thought it was a good way to explain what was going on. Basically, you get that, and then they're asking Batman to suit up and help them fight Zod. He doesn't want to do it because he doesn't have it in him anymore. But eventually they convince him, and you get to see him suit up again. You get to see him say, "I'm Batman." All the cool nostalgic things from Michael Keaton. So then after that, they go to this winter base to go get Superman, who they think is Superman, right? So they go to Krypton and try to break in to get Superman, who, granted, in this timeline is still a baby. So they fight all these guards. You get Batman in action again. It's pretty cool sequence. Then you go and you break into this place. You break into where Superman would be in that big ass giant kind of circle thing, and instead of Superman, it's Sasha Kayak's Superwoman. So instead of Superman, it's Superwoman, obviously, because in this timeline, I guess Superman was not the one that had the Krypton gift in him or whatever they were explaining, something along those lines. So they rescue Supergirl. They're like, okay, that's not Superman. That's a different variation of, or whatever they say. They rescue her. She first fights him because she doesn't know what's going on, but then they kind of get back to the base and they kind of talk about everything that's going on, and then she sees Zod's back and she's like, Zod's coming after me, because you remember how in Man of Steel Zod came after Superman, but this time Zod's coming after Supergirl, right? So Zod's back, he's aiming to destroy everyone, and then, she got to get her powers back, so then they take her up to this, the roof of Wayne Manor, and she's solar powered, so she, stands in the sun, and then you get the whole cape and all that stuff, and then, when you get to, like, the very end, or you coming to the end, get the final battle with Zod. Now, this is where I felt like the movie dropped off, all right? I liked how they were explaining the plot up until this point. I liked where things were going up until this point, okay? You get to, like, this, I want to say, like, a desert area, because I feel like the final battle couldn't have been done anywhere else, because either they'd have to animate a lot of CGI, or a lot of civilians would have to die. Like, I feel like that'd be a lot of work. So, you get to this desert, you get the final battle with Zod, you got Michael Keaton's Batman, you got Supergirl, you got the two versions of Flash, obviously. Flash, and Reverse Flash, or Evil Flash, but he doesn't know he's evil yet. So the two versions of Flash, Supergirl, and Michael Keaton's Batman. Now, in this universe, or in this multiverse timeline, Keaton and Supergirl die. And no matter how many times they try to go back and save them, it always ends the same way. So this is where I think things got a little sour for me, okay? Because you brought Michael Keaton back, and yeah, you may have done a good amount of him within this film, but to just have him die like that, and to have Supergirl just die like that with no good resolution, I felt like I didn't like. So, Barry, older Barry accepts that this needs to happen, that no matter how many times they go and change the past, this is always going to be the result in this universe. So then, Evil Barry, which I like to call him, Evil Flash, whatever you want to call him, they both go in this time, I think they called it the time globe or something, and Evil Barry is he's running back in time, trying to go back in the past to try to, save them and try to fix things and save his mom and all that. But what he doesn't realize is while he's doing that, he's screwing up all the other timelines. And so, older Barry, mature Barry realizes that, but younger Barry doesn't. And, older Barry's trying to tell him, and this is where kind of younger Barry turns evil. He's like, I have to save them. Like, no matter what, I have to save them. And Barry's like, but look what you're doing. You're destroying all the timelines in the process. And he's like, I don't care. I need to save them. There has to be a way. And then you get this third version that's kind of like older Barry, who's been, like, doing this for years. And he's kind of like the second version of Barry that's, like, has to save him no matter what. And then older, very old Barry fights evil, younger Barry, and then he kind of disintegrates or whatever. Oh, and no, before that, while this whole thing is going on, they show a bunch of these cameos of these different timelines of, like, alternate versions of all these superheroes. Now, I'm not kidding you when I say the CGI in these cameos were so bad, I almost wish they weren't in them. You had actors that were CGI'd into the movie that just looked awful. Like, for example, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the CGI is bad. Like, some of these actors, they should have just gotten the real actors. Anyway, that's not the important part. That's just the CGI is awful in this film, and that didn't help. I'd rather that scene wasn't in it if the CGI was going to be so bad. Anyway, get to the end of the film. Barry defeats younger Barry, who's evil, whatever, doesn't realize or isn't mature yet, etc. Then you go back to Barry's timeline, and he goes to the store where he sees his mom. And the whole reason his mom ended up dying is because she forgot to grab a can of tomatoes. And that's why Barry's dad went back and grabbed the tomatoes. But then when Barry's dad left, the intruder came in. So Barry kind of realizes now that he can't, like, he kind of like saw what it was like to still have his mom around, but he kind of realizes now that if his mom is around, it screws up everything else in different timelines, different universes. So he kind of comes to terms with it. He meets his mom at the store, and she's at the store, and he put a can of tomatoes in there to make sure she didn't forget so she could still be around. But then he takes the can of tomatoes out and puts it on the top shelf, because earlier in the film they thought the dad was the one that did it because they couldn't see his face when he was grabbing the tomatoes. So Barry put the tomatoes on the top shelf so they could see his face, so they know it's not him. Anyway, Barry does that. He kind of says one final goodbye to his mom because he knows his mom, you know, he kind of knows his mom's going to forget the tomatoes, and that's kind of just going to be how it has to be. And, you know, it's an emotional moment. I think it was probably the most emotional moment in the film. Not enough to, like, a tearjerker, but still pretty emotional. He says his final goodbye, and he walks off. And that happens. That all plays out how it's supposed to. And you get a scene of Barry and this kind of law girl. She was just kind of a main/side character in this whole thing. You get this law girl and Barry walking out because they just had the trial for the dad, and the security footage shows now that you could see Barry's dad in the camera. So Barry's dad did not do it. So Barry's dad is allowed to be set free and doesn't have to be in jail anymore. So they win the case and everyone's all happy. Barry walks out with his dad, you know, they're answering questions. And all of a sudden, you know, people are in a frenzy. You know, they go over to see what's going on. And this, like, limo pulls up, right? Like, it's very expensive, fancy limo, right? Now, here's what I thought was going to happen. Now, this is the end, and I don't want to talk about it, but, I mean, it's not really anything. Honestly, you guys would be better if I could just told you so you don't have to stay till the very end. Anyway, I thought what was going to happen was Michael Keaton was going to step out of that limo, and Michael Keaton was going to be the Batman for that universe that Barry is, for Barry's original universe, which I thought was going to happen, which I saw going around that was the plan before James Gunn came in and changed a whole bunch of shit, which I don't like. If there was original stuff in the film, just keep it. Anyway, aside from that, I'm just going to tell you guys because it's not really anything crazy. It's kind of a gag, to be honest, and I'd rather save you guys the trouble of not having to wait all the way till the very end and getting out of there a little early. So, out pops the worst version of Batman, or could have been the worst version of Batman. I don't remember if he played Batman or he was going to play Batman, but out pops George Clooney out of the limo. And I guess the gag is he's not going to be the Batman of the universe, but I guess it was just a gag they threw in. But, like, why end it on a joke or a gag like that? That doesn't really make sense to me. Anyway, post-credit scene. This is another one that is nothing special. I wish they would have kept the original post-credit scene. Anyway, you get Barry and Aquaman on screen. And they're walking out of a bar. Aquaman's drunk off his ass. Barry's telling him what he just went through and the different versions of superheroes. And Aquaman's like, what's the other version of me like? Well, he didn't see the other version, but Barry's like, yeah, just the same, pretty much. And, Aquaman's drunk, and then he falls in a puddle, and then he's just like, oh, I'm just gonna stay here, or whatever, and then Barry just walks to his apartment, and then that's how the movie ends. So let's just get the positives out of the way first. I'm gonna give you the positives, the negatives, and then my rankings from critically, and then audience scores. Okay, so the positives. The positives of this film. Number one, Michael Keaton as Batman. I think that is the number one positive in this movie. Another positive is the plot they were telling was good up until I'd say the later half of the film. Fine. The score was great. Loved it. They had Danny Elfman do the score. Fine with it. And the last positive I'd say about this film was that some of the action in here I enjoyed. Most of the action I enjoyed. Those are the positives. Now the negatives. The CGI is some of the worst I've seen in any movie in years. The character development of the evil Flash and just rushing why he's evil and all that stuff is a negative. I wish they would have took more time to build why he's evil and develop his character instead of rush it. That's a negative. Another negative is obviously the ending being a gag. I don't think you end a movie like that on a joke. That's just my opinion. And the other negative would have to be the post-credit scene. Again, I don't think you end a DC comic book movie that is supposed to lead into James Gunn's new DC universe with a pretty boring post-credit scene. Anyway, that aside, what did I think of the film, and then we'll give the ratings. Like I said, it's an okay film. Okay, it's not the best, it's not the worst. Do I think you should go see it? If you like Michael Keaton as Batman, go ahead and go see it. If you like something else in the film, go see it. I would say if you want to see Michael Keaton as Batman, go see this. But if that's the only thing you want to go see this movie for, don't go see it. Because you're just wasting I think you're wasting your money. I don't think that this was the original version of this film. I know for a fact it wasn't. And it's an okay film. If you want to go see it, but it'd be an okay movie to pass up as well and wait for streaming. So I'll give it if you want to go see it, great. If you don't want to go see it, you can wait to stream it too. Now, critic score and audience score. So critically, I'm going to give this film, just based on all the critics, I'm going to give it a C. No, wait. I'm going to give it a B minus, critically. I was going to go C. Actually, wait. Critics. Let me think what critics would think. Yeah. Well, I'm not a critic, but I'm going to say critics B minus. I'm going to say audience score B. And then my overall rating for this film is going to land at a B minus. It's not the worst, it's not the best, but it's definitely not better than Spider-Man or any other it's definitely not better than Spider-Man. And I've seen some people saying that online, and that's not true. Anyway, that was my long-awaited review for Flash. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, if you want to go see it, but it's also fine for you to wait for it to come on streaming. Final verdict is, should you go see The Flash? This one, I would say, I would say yes, go see it, or yes, this deserves to be seen in theaters, or no, it can go to streaming. This one, I'd say it's based on your preference. Anyway, that was The Flash spoiler-free review / spoiler review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Finally saw Transformers. Should have that out sometime tomorrow for you guys. Anyway, have a good night. And as always, keep it cool.